Hey, what's going on, guys? Thanks for tuning in today. We have got an awesome episode lined up for you with Mr. DJ Riley from Michigan. I'm sure many of you guys know DJ. If you don't, he's an awesome dude, absolute killer, and also a podcast host of the Method podcast from Latitude. I hope you guys tune in to this episode and follow us through to the end. Really enjoyed this one with DJ. We get into a couple of different things. We start off, honestly, just getting into, catching up with each other about our seasons. And DJ asked me a couple cool questions. So it's kind of cool to start things off that way, a little bit different with this one. But we get into a lot of stuff with the mobile hunting community, a lot of stuff, kind of like rapid questions of, what he's learned, through becoming a podcaster and, also doing podcasting longer than I've been doing it and what he's picked up from other mobile hunters in the community. Really good stuff. And then we also wrap things up with his Kansas season that he had. We had a couple, mishaps, both of us. So we get into that and what we've learned along the way and a lot of really good stuff, man. So hope you guys really enjoyed this one. I sure did. First of all, we got a couple announcements I wanted to let you all in on. Me and Sean Twitt are getting together March 21st. We've got a few spots left for our whitetail workshop. So if you guys are interested, please let me know. It is $400 for the day of Saturday. We're going to have breakfast and lunch included, everything from head to toe and what we're doing to be successful through access, setting up your farms. We've got Ryan Nordahl. He's going to be joining us also to cover TSI and what you should be cutting down, how you should be doing it. This is going to be a really special event. I hope you guys can attend. It's going to be just outside of Lexington, Kentucky. So let me know if you guys are interested. I'd love to have you join us. We've also got some big giveaways that we're going to be doing on that one. And really excited for it. So it's coming up fast. If you guys are interested, like I said, we've got a few spots left. Let me know. Right now, the Great American Outdoor Show is still going on. If you guys are around the Pennsylvania area, go see the guys over at Osseo, Lone Wolf, and tell them we sent you. We got to give a huge shout out to our sponsors that make the show possible. Let's give a huge shout out to Osseo Gear. Make sure you use code RUNGUN20 at checkout. Save yourself 20%. For Lone Wolf, make sure you guys are following along. Go check them out. Like I said, if you're able to go to any of the shows, yeah, I think they've got some good discounts and good discounted products. I'm not exactly sure what the deal is this year, so stay tuned for that and go holler at them. Tell them we sent you. Painted Arrow Outdoors. Make sure you use code RUNANDGUN15. Save 15% at checkout. And also our boy Pope over at Arrows Anonymous. Make sure you guys check him out if you're looking for any arrows this year. It's got the best in the game. Dude is amazing. Reach out to him, let him know what you're looking for, and he will get you set up. Let's get into our quote of the week, and we'll jump into today's episode. This one I just recently picked up online, and it really hit me, and I liked it a lot. So hope you guys do too. Little by little, a little becomes a lot. You sit on that one and think about it. It's definitely hits hard. So any way you want to apply it to your life, I think in a good way or a bad way. So something to think about. Hope you guys are having a great day. Let's get into today's episode with DJ Riley. So what's going on, DJ? Pleasure to have you, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Justin. I've listened to your podcast for a good amount of time, and so when you reached out and asked me to be on, I was like, hell yeah, I'll jump on your podcast. But to start this off, I have a recommendation for you.
Yes, let's hear it.
Okay,
let's hear it.
So I am a canvas print fan. Like I love taking, I don't take good pictures, but like when pictures catch my eyes, I love getting them printed out on a canvas print and putting them out in the man cave. And I was actually thinking that you should take a still image of that buck you killed when he's standing in the water and get that printed on a canvas picture. I think it'd be awesome.
Okay. I will do that. Thank God for 4K cameras because, man, like him standing still, I can actually take a screenshot of it and it comes out pretty clear. So I'll take you up on that, buddy. I think I should. I'm really excited for us to get our house done and actually do a legitimate studio right now. Mm-hmm. If you can't tell, I'm in my wife's office that we have, one of our spare bedrooms here. So Not quite as professional, not quite as good looking as some of the other studios. I love your background you got. Looks legit. But I will definitely take you up on that, and I'll make sure I tag you when we get that done. So
Oh, there you
thanks,
go.
thanks for the tip, man.
I'll send you a link, and it's not the highest end canvas prints in the world, but there's something about a canvas print that I just love. And after we get off here, I have to show you some of my other ones I have out in the finished part of the basement. But I don't know, I just think they're cool. And when I watched your video, it was like, man, I hope it happens for you again once standing in the water like that. But I mean, when that buck was standing there, I was like, dude, that's an image itself right there.
It really was, man. That was like after it happened so fast, but at the same time, like it replays in my head so many times, man. And I knew it was going to happen. I didn't know it was going to be that like cinematic, like sexy, but man, like that spot, I guarantee you, I will probably kill another buck in that spot. Like
Okay, sweet.
it's the lay of the land. Like the deer just naturally funnel and cross right there. There's a big ditch on the other side of it,
Hmm.
and these deer just go in and out and cross there like crazy. So that's exactly what he was getting ready to do, is just cross the creek and go up into that drainage. So I definitely found like the niche spot of the farm, and
Hmm.
it's not a huge farm, but it's just one of those terrain features, man, that like just you got like a hard dirt path that goes right up that hill, and I couldn't think of a better location. I'm like, not only do I got this nice CRP field in front of me, but back behind you, found the perfect tree where it covered me up. I would have never. I was so bummed I didn't have my GoPro rolling. Like I had my
Hmm.
GoPro in the
Yeah.
tree, and I just turned and looked at him and went instantly into like filming with my camera. But the GoPro footage would have been amazing to just put that together, and I probably would have had him in the frame,
Hmm.
but it didn't
What
happen.
is with that CRP behind you? A buck like that, was that a morning hunt or
It was a
evening
morning
hunt?
hunt. Yeah.
Morning
Yeah.
hunt. So was he coming off that CRP field and dumping down in there, or was he headed up to that CRP?
Yeah. So what he did, I've learned. So we have the front end of our property is like crops. So it's just like
Hmm.
maybe an 8 acre bean field. He came in from that direction, never saw him before, never had him on camera, just naturally came in, probably crossed the road, I guess. And then, as he came in, he came right through this little gap where I have another stand at. But with that morning, the wind was like west, so it was blowing like the way the creek was behind me would be south, so it was blowing directly downwind. Like, and I was on the corner of our property pretty much.
Hmm.
And he went into that CRP, and a lot of times the deer will just mill around in the CRP and kind of go through. But I think he had traveled that route before, or maybe he just wanted to go get some water, is what I'm thinking. And he just came in through the CRP. It was the first deer of the day, and he dropped right down into that creek. And I knew, like, I'm like, dude, all the deer have just been naturally just funneling right through. There's a nice little sandbar. They come right through the sandbar, and then they drop down and they cross the creek to go up to the other ag field on the
Yeah.
other side. So it just worked out. Like I knew what he was going to do. He took a lot longer
Hmm.
than what I expected him to do. And like hindsight in the future, I'm totally, if I see one there, I'm just going to hit the GoPro, but uh, didn't happen. But yeah, just really, really cool experience, man. This year is just absolutely insane. I feel
Yeah.
so blessed, man.
You've had a great year. Let me ask you about that creek. Is that water moving at all times, or is it pretty stagnant?
It's moving decent. It's not a very fast moving. It actually is a river, but I look at it more like a creek because it's just so low. It's like
Hmm.
whenever we have a bunch of rain, it'll fill up, but it's so perfect, dude. It's like 5 to 6 inches deep in the deeper spots.
Hmm.
And then for me, like you talk about bulletproof access. I mean, I literally just walk all the way. And I was also bummed. I wish I would have gotten some more footage of me walking through the creek, but like it's kind of hard first light, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Like it's just dark, pure dark. So I got in there, use the water every time, then I exit the same way. So it's very minimal intrusion. I just jet straight up out of there right into my stand. And I knew, I was like, look, if a buck ever does cross, if he catches my ground scent, he's screwed anyway. So it's
Hmm.
like it's a win-win for everything. And very I don't think I ever have gotten busted with my ground scent right there. It's like real sandy, loamy dirt.
Hmm.
So it's really good to cover up. And a lot of times when I leave on my way out, I'll kind of like push the sand over my tracks, kind of like I'll try to do that. During
Yeah.
the rut, I don't think it matters in
Yeah.
general, but
Yeah. It's creeks in water are interesting to me because, here in Michigan, I deal with a lot of stagnant water because of swamps. And that's why I was curious if it was moving water or not, because I think it gets so overlooked a lot of times, especially here, that we don't have elevation change. So a lot of people feel like, well, the thermals don't play as big as factor. But our stagnant water, yeah, dude, the thermal pull and push, depending on the water temperature compared to the air temperature, is such a big factor. So that's why I was curious, that buck dropping down into there, that if it was stagnant water, like he might be using that water to his advantage more than what people would even think. But since it's moving, what's always interesting to me about that is when I think of moving water and then like the days that let's say that moving water is going from north to south, then on a south wind day when that wind's kind of pushing against it, like what does that like water do right there? And then like say the next 10 yards off the banks, depending on like wind speed and I get thinking about that stuff a lot. And it's like, man, I think there's probably like these little tunnels on the edges of it that's so like they use to their advantage a lot for whether they're getting ready to cross out into say that CRP field, or maybe it's during the rut, and he's using it to like he can check everything that's literally upstream of there with that wind coming down to him. I don't know, I probably overthink a lot of that stuff, but the water is very interesting to me, whether it's moving or stagnant, and then how deep that water actually is.
yeah, you're spot on, man. Actually, I think a lot of times that specific stand location is just so money because, like I said, with the natural from watching that over the past month that I actually hunted there,
Mhm.
I really don't like to hunt the same tree, but that was just one of those. I knew I was like I left it alone. I knew that was going to be like my spot to kill during the rut.
Mhm.
It lays out actually on the north end of our property, and that creek flows like from west to east is the
Okay.
direction of the water.
Yep.
So that day specifically, I was like kind of on the fence about hunting it, but it being the rut, I kind of threw my caution out the wind a little bit. And
Mhm.
I was like, you know what? It actually really shouldn't matter because I'm elevated for a morning set. Like when it's dark, my are already pulling down into that stream.
Mhm.
With the wind that morning, it was a west wind,
Sure.
and it was just pushing right down the creek with the flow of the water.
Mhm.
And a lot of times, like what I noticed there, it's a little bit deeper when you go just past that stand, and the deer just don't seem to like to cross it as much right there. So they'd
Mhm.
almost rather be pushed to the farther north side of that bank. And that's exactly what they do. They either come down that trail that they've made. It's just a nice little embankment,
Mhm.
or they like to come up farther down, like a couple hundred yards down, and I'll see them come through there and then they'll cross up. And generally, when they do that, they end up right in the CRP field in front of me, just like a little bit farther ahead of me. So
Mhm.
it
Well,
just was one of those textbook locations, man, where it's like, you just really like just use your eyes, man. I mean,
mhm.
it's like a obvious hard trail right there. There's several
Mhm.
of them through, but that one just seemed to be the most hard trails, and so many bucks used it. Almost more bucks than does, to be honest with you. A lot of times I'd have little bucks using it. I had a nice, if you saw the video, I passed a nice 4 year old.
Mhm.
He did the same thing.
Yeah.
Came right off that bank right behind me. He did that. I passed him a couple times. I didn't get him on video every time. I used my phone a couple
Mhm.
just to film him, but yeah, it
Yeah.
just seemed like such a textbook location. Any mature deer that's rolling through there, man, like they're in trouble if they come down those trails one way or the other. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Well, and it's, and no matter, I know that took place in Iowa, but, you could take creek systems or river systems like that all over the country. And it's like, those are, you automatically get two edges no matter what, one on each side already,
Hmm.
and I think, whitetails are such edge animals to begin with, where you're just adding in another edge there too, where like you think where there's probably some edge there to that creek, that CRP isn't too far off another edge, and where they're just using the best benefit and easiest way of travel for them to come through there, and do, say during November, scent check or whatever. It's probably a reason why you're seeing more bucks there than actually does, or it's like it's beneficial to them. But I don't
Yeah,
know. I
absolutely.
love little creeks and rivers like that, man. And you
Yeah.
seem to find Usually there's sign in it, easy to read, that soft soil over the sand, automatic edges, good access entry, get in and out. I like your setup there. I love hunting right on those edges of those creeks and banks where you're like, once you climb
Yeah.
up those banks, it's like
No,
your
and it's
footprint is
super,
very
yeah,
minimal.
super simple. And I always hunted it on a south wind. It was just one of those locations like on a north wind, my scent would directly be blown into that CRP. And man, in the mornings, a lot of times I would climb up in my set and it'd become light and I'd have does bedded in that CRP and they would never know. Now, like the day prior to that, I actually came up there, it was a full moon. I popped up the bank and oh man, I'll never forget it. I scared the hell out of this doe. She was bedded right next to my tree. And you pop right up the little sandbar there, and it's like I was eye level with her and she wigged out.
Yeah.
But pretty comical. Wish I would
Let
have had
me
like a little GoPro rolling or something right there.
Yeah, no doubt. Let me ask you this because I know you came from Kentucky. Man, when I first started traveling out to the Midwest, it was hard for me to wrap my head around how deer wanted to be in CRP and how they used it because, coming from Michigan, when I thought of CRP, I just thought of open ground. I was like, oh, they're not going to use that. That's not thick enough. It only took me about 4 to 8 hours the first time I ever was in Iowa to realize, like, holy shit, dude. It was in the morning where all these deer were just dumping down off the CRP. There's some elevation and dumping down into the bottoms for the day, and the bucks would come down in there. But like, was it a big learning curve for you with that CRP ground, or did you kind of already have some experience with that before actually moving out to Iowa?
In Kentucky, I had a couple farms that had it. I wouldn't call it like intense CRP. It was more just
Mhm,
like overgrown grass fields,
mhm,
like it wasn't like what you stereotypically think of like Kansas CRP or anything like that. But I learned from last year, man, like I kind of manipulated this little lease that I had. And I learned like, man, like if you've got a secluded CRP field, these deer just love moving during daylight. They're in that stuff. It's
mhm,
almost like an extra little security cover, even though they're wide open.
mhm,
So I kind of like, I worked my way in. I like hunting from the outside in,
mhm,
especially on that property. I really was like, there was just an overabundance of deer in there. And I was really methodical about like not just pushing into the woods because you honestly you couldn't without blowing
mhm,
deer out of there. So I was like, okay, what's my best access? What's my best exit so I can get in and out without educating these deer? And I tried to apply that to a lot of my hunting. Like a lot of the public I hunted out here, that was the same mindset is like, okay, what can I do that other guys aren't doing? And I tried to manipulate water access because if you've been in Iowa, like we have tons of these like low creeks and like
mhm,
there is some spots where you can't just cross a creek like or a river system, but a lot of times you can. And it all depends on the rainfall, the time of the year, whatever you got going on. But yeah, I think I had a little bit of a learning curve coming from Kentucky and dealing with that. I got to see it there. We didn't have quite as many CRP fields, but it was in the back of my head, and there was definitely more eye opening because I feel like the deer, too, like the deer do a little bit different stuff out here. Deer are deer
yeah,
out here, right? Like
yeah,
there. I know Maryland was like that. I had some CRP fields in Maryland too, but I've definitely grown a lot as a hunter from Maryland to, now moving to Iowa. So it's like I've kind of just caught on to more stuff and I'm more like an observer and then execute.
yeah,
So that was kind of my game plan and strategy, especially with that place. Like I manipulated that spot a little bit by doing my little scrape post thing, which was phenomenal this year, man. Like that was such a key. I wouldn't say it was just a key thing, but it was just something else for those deer to just, get their curiosity. I had tons of does hitting that scrape in front of me and little bucks. I never got to see in person. I never got to see a mature deer hit that scrape, but they seem to love it. And
mhm.
I don't know if that'll work in every state. So that's why I say like the Iowa deer are a little bit different. I'm not gonna say they're dumber or whatever, but they just do what deer are supposed to do.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had a hell of a first year, but no, the CRP thing it's always, anything that's new to me, it catches my interest a lot. And it was one of those things that I had to see it to believe it. And it didn't take me long to start seeing like, yeah, dude, like those deer, those big mature bucks, they were using it. And I was just, I was kind of closed minded when I first ever got around CRP because it just felt like a field to me. And being from Michigan, it was like this,
It's
this,
foreign, right?
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're not gonna kill a big one in an open field like that. Where it was actually the complete opposite. It was like, yeah, they use
You
that
never
shit a
know what's
lot.
in that CRP, man. It's just amazing. Like those deer just pop out and you're like, oh, wow.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
Well, dude, I got to ask you some questions. I feel like I'm being podcast by you here.
No,
I
I was just curious about some
No,
to see
no,
about
I
that
love it.
deer,
I
man.
love it. That's awesome. No, there's some great questions too. Obviously, DJ, you have your own podcast, the Method Podcast. I'm sure a lot of you guys that listen to this, hopefully you listen to DJ as well. So, we kind of have like with the mobile hunting community, it's kind of become its own like culture.
Hmm.
What do you think that a lot of outsiders are completely like misunderstanding, about the mobile hunting community? What would you say?
Well, the one thing that I would think if I was a new guy looking in and trying to get into mobile hunting, and it doesn't even have to be necessarily like, oh, I want to get into killing big bucks or whatever. Let's just say I want to get into mobile hunting and just bow hunting in general. I think if I was to look at it from a newbie, I would think that there's all this emphasis of that you got to have all this kinds of gear to do it. There's no doubt that nice gear helps, but it's not the end all be all. Like there's still at the end of the day, like a pair of boots and a bow in your hand, and just getting out into the woods. Woodsmanship still wins today, even with all the gear we have. And so I think that someone new looking in, I think they could feel a little bit overwhelmed by all the gear and all the things that we all like to use, but we've been using it for a long time, right?
Hmm.
We've kind of taken our craft and the gear we use, and we try to make it to the best of our ability that it works best for ourselves, right? So I think that I think that that could feel overwhelming for someone is like, man, I got to get all this gear just to be able to start doing it, where it's really not. It looks like a lot on social media, but to get into mobile hunting, it's very simple. I look back when I started mobile hunting in 2012 was when I first bought a full setup. And when say a full setup, all it was is it was a Lone Wolf Assault 2 and 4 of the original 36-inch Lone Wolf sticks. That's all I needed. Like you didn't like that was it. That's how once you bought it, you were kind of done. And that could get you into mobile hunting where I just feel like today it feels like all of the shit you have to have, where
Yeah,
it's like, no,
no,
you don't
you're
have
spot
to.
on. It is. I have a lot of friends, that are like, okay, man, I finally want to get, what do I need to get? Hit me with the list. And it's like, man, there's so much quality gear out there now. It's
Mhm.
like, I don't really care what you go with, which it's like, obviously, I'm partnered with Lone Wolf. I love all their stuff, but it's like realistically, like, what's your budget, man? What can you spend? Because there's tons and tons of options, and I don't recommend everybody just jumping in and dumping thousands of dollars into this. Like, figure out that you want it, that you actually are going to enjoy this, and then go in there and go ahead and get what you need. And like I think all the mobile hunting companies out there now are making great stuff.
Mhm.
So it's
Agreed.
realistically, like, what do you want? What do you need? And what's your budget? You know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I
So
mean, I guess, and the nice thing now is like there is options because
right.
like you think like
Tons. When we
back
started, right? Like there's
yeah
one
like
saddle we had
yeah
like
like back in the early 2000s, like we had the like I said, it's I got one sitting right next to me here. It's the original Lone Wolf Assault 2 and the original 36-inch sticks. That's what you
yeah.
had. Unless you went the climber route. I wasn't going the climber route. Knew where I hunted. It had to be some kind of a hang on and sticks back then. And
Mhm.
that's all you had for now. Boy, you get all kinds of options. So it's come a long ways. I mean, if you put it this way, if you're just getting into mobile hunting, don't be discouraged about all the gear. Maybe look at it as like, dude, at least you have all these options where it never used to be like that.
Yeah. No, you're spot on with that, man. Like as far as like mobile hunters go, like do you feel like you've learned like there's a certain personality type that are just like more hardcore? Or like what have you kind of learned with like being a podcaster and primarily interviewing a lot more like mobile hunters, do you feel like they have their own set of like personality traits? What would you say?
Yeah, I would. Yeah,
We're all
let's.
stupid. We're
No,
all just
no, no. It's definitely the one thing that I've always been able to kind of watch from afar with mobile hunting is it seems to be mobile hunting and trying to even like hunt bigger, more mature deer. It seems like people they'll give it hell for 3 years. Like 3 years is kind of the thing. And if they don't have success, they kind of move on to something else. Like it's,
Mhm,
yeah, maybe it's not my thing. So to me, like the guys that pick up mobile hunting and stick with it, even stick with it through the trials and in the tribulations and the good days and the bad days, and maybe they don't have success right away, but they really stick with it, and they finally really start to see the benefits of mobile hunting. I think there's a lot of grittiness in personality when it comes to mobile hunting, but when I think of mobile hunters, I think of very like, hardworking. That'd be the easy one to say. But to me, the first one that honestly comes on the top of my head are detailed individuals because they, their gear is detailed. The way they hunt is detailed. They understand that, whether it's, the gear they're using or the woodsmanship that they're using, that like the smallest details kill the biggest animals. And that's something I believe in. And so like when I think of guys that are mobile hunting, like they're just detailed. And here's I think this is going to be a perfect example for this one right here. The the guy, Ryan Snow, you had him on not too
yeah,
long
he was
ago.
our last guest, yep.
Yep. So, and I've followed along with Ryan's story for a while, and if Ryan never hunted, and if he says, you know what, I'm going to start hunting next week, just from the detail I see in his way, he like say that van build, or when
Right,
he like
meticulous,
yes, dude,
yeah,
in order like it doesn't matter if he was gonna go pick up hunting or something else. I almost guarantee he'd be good at it. Just give him some time, just because of that detailed personality. So I think when I think of mobile hunters, I think of detailed individuals, because like you're not just walking out there and climbing up a stand somewhere. Like the way that shit is packed from your house to your vehicle, from your vehicle to your back, from your back into the woods, up the tree, down the tree. It's in because you got to think about it. You go out mobile hunting. I remember those very first years, those first couple years going up, never an issue. Is when it got dark and it was like, oh, son of a bitch, I got to take all this stuff down. But like, if you didn't have a good detailed system of how to do it, it
mhm.
made it wasn't fun. And once you kind of came up with a detailed system, what worked for you individually, it just became repetitious. And that's when things would start clicking for somebody.
No, I think that's spot on, dude, yeah, I love that. Yeah, I couldn't agree more as far as the detailedness. I feel like it takes us all like a couple years to kind of progress to that system that it's like,
Hmm.
and that's what I try to tell everybody. It's like, man, make your own system. Don't be afraid to like get creative and come up with your own way to pack your stuff. Like there's tons and tons of ways to do stuff now and tons of packs for this setup versus that setup that make everything more streamlined. But, find something that you like and you're happy with. And certain people like single steps, certain people like double steps. I mean, that's that's the hardest thing I think is like all
Hmm.
the options out there. It's like, what's a guy that's new to this, get started with? But I think the biggest thing that I've seen a lot of guys come up and quit is and I hope this doesn't rub anybody the wrong way, but like a lot of guys that go from baiting deer to wanting to be mobile have a really hard time where like they're like, man, I'm not seeing deer. And it's like, dude, that's part of this.
Hmm.
You are not gonna see deer every time you go, like just accept that because you're hunting deer differently. You're thinking about things on a whole different level than what you used to do. And I think a lot of people have a hard time letting that go because
Hmm.
they're like, hey, I want to see deer. I want to see deer. It's like, okay, like you will, but like you got to embrace this like suck factor for a little bit. And I don't care. anybody that's been doing this, we all feel like we suck at times.
Mhm.
It's nothing that, every person out there that mobile hunts doesn't feel. So I think that's where you get into your, what you had mentioned to begin with the grit. Like you have to have a grit factor to you because this isn't easy. I mean, it takes a long time to like figure out your system and what you're doing and what you're doing with deer hunting too, because it's a completely opposite. If you started off deer hunting primarily with bait, and I know you guys don't have that issue in Michigan, but for guys in Kentucky, like some of my friends in Kentucky, it was hard, to
Yeah.
get them. They were like, "Oh, this, why would I want to do that when I can go sit here?" And it's like, okay, well, I tried to be a good example. It's like you can have more success doing this, but it does suck sometimes. So,
Yeah,
there's
yeah.
that.
Well, in two, Justin, it's, not exactly the exact same as, say, the baiting thing, but, even, when I first got into mobile hunting, I came from the world of, having just a ton of, hang-ons and ladder sticks in every tree. In the year I bought that mobile setup in 2012, I knew what the benefit was. I had studied. I did a lot of like hunting forums back in the day, and I knew guys on those hunting forums they were killing stuff with these mobile systems. So I knew that's what I wanted to do, and so you know when I bought that, I sold. I remember I had 16 of them, 16 tree stands and 16 the 20-foot ladder sticks. I sold all of them because I was like, I don't want any handicap. I don't want anything to handicap me to say, well, man, it's kind of like, I'll just go to that one in the morning. So I don't have to, I didn't want any of that. I wanted to fully indulge myself into mobile hunting. And I'll never forget in that year in 2012, before I killed my first buck mobile hunting, I can remember like thinking to myself, one day I was up in the tree and, just, looking over a swamp or whatever. And I'm like, I could go anywhere in the country and hunt now, like anywhere I wanted to, and not saying I could go anywhere and kill one, but now that I have this mobile setup, like there's no like, well, what would I do? Would I take a bunch of tree stands there with me? Those days were over with. So like having that mobile setup, it was like it opened up the doors of saying, hey, we go hunt anywhere, any given time, any opportunities moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. What's one of the biggest mistakes you feel like a lot of new mobile hunters are making, when they're first getting into this stuff, like kind of seeing what people are doing online and trying to copy, what people are doing. I mean, I feel like it's just kind of tough. Like if you don't have a mentor or something like that to kind of help you with stuff, it can be a little bit challenging.
Yeah, man, there could be a couple things. You brought up the copying part. That's a really big one, man. Just because I think like somebody could listen to this podcast today and they said, "Man, I want to hunt just like Justin hunts, or I want to hunt just like DJ hunts, or I want to hunt just like the next guy." And don't get me wrong, there's nuggets that you can take from us, but remember, for the listener, your situation is different than mine. Your situation is different than Justin's. Mine's different than Justin's. Justin's is different than mine. All of our situations are different. So to completely try to copy what someone's doing, I don't think I like there's pieces you can take, but you have to really create your own method of hunting. Like you really got to figure out what works for you in your areas. But when I think of what could possibly be, and this is going to be like maybe a hot take here of what could be, I don't want to call it a mistake because there's some learning to it, and it's taken, and I still learn this every year because it's something I noticed in myself early on with mobile hunting, and that is this: being too mobile at times,
Yeah.
feeling
Yeah.
that like I can remember that those first years I made a promise to myself, we're never hunting the same tree twice this year, and always moving. And in looking back at some of those years, it was like, well, why'd you leave deer to go find deer just because you were, quote unquote mobile hunting? You felt like you had to keep moving. Where now I may give an area a little bit more time. It may not be the exact same tree though, because I always felt like you had to have these really big moves. And I
Hmm.
look at some of the success that I've had over the years, and those moves I made are 8-yard moves or 12-yard moves or inside 45 yards where they're not these giant moves where I'm moving from one end to a piece of public ground to the other end. It's just really, hunting, tightening the grip, hunting, tightening the grip on these areas where I'm still moving, but I'm not being like this completely mobile, leaving the area, whole different property all the time. Where it's like, spending a little bit more time focusing in on certain areas. So I think one of the biggest, I don't want to call it mistake because I don't know if that's the right word, but I knew this was one for myself is I was just too mobile, like too often early on.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, dude. And the exact moment that comes to my mind is the tree that I ended up killing my buck that we were just talking about, like the
Hmm.
8 on the river bottom. I had a tree that I picked out that was excellent in October, right? Because I had the foliage, I had good cover. Well, there was a day I went to go like put some scent on that mock scrape that I made, and I just analyzed it and I was looking at it and I'm like, man, if a deer comes in down in that creek, I'm going to be picked out like a sore thumb. There's no cover anymore. And I just looked at it and I stood there for probably 5 minutes, just like analyzing that whole tree line. Like, okay, like here is this ideal spot. I've got this situation. Like, and I looked at it and I'm like, right there. And I adjusted all of 5 feet, but it was the cover that made the difference.
Hmm.
And if I had not made that move, I don't think I ever could have gotten away with drawing back on that buck because he picked me out. I had to do a 180 in my saddle when he was behind me, and
Hmm.
I had a doe in front of me in that CRP, right? When between the time of him walking down the bottom, that doe came in out in the field. So she's like looking at me because she saw me move my camera and I didn't even know that she was out there. And I was like, oh shit. So she's looking at me. But when he came in, I had a tree directly between me and him, and there was a split. And that's exactly why I went to that elevation was to get above that split so I could shoot in between it. And that's exactly where that deer stopped at. And I told that, and that's where I was bummed out that I didn't have my GoPro rolling because it would have been such a strong visual for people to see. Like,
Hmm.
that's why that worked. That's why I was able to come to full draw with him staring at me. He just wasn't sure what it was, you know?
Hmm.
So, I mean, you're spot on with that. And I think every mobile hunter's guilty of that at some point. Like, when you find a good tree, man, like you found the tree, like we're all out there trying to find that one specific tree. And like, when you find it, a lot of times, like you can repeat success in areas like that. So just depends on the terrain and what you got, but
Hmm.
no, that's sweet. That was a heck of a response.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it's something. Like most of the lessons I've learned, Justin, they all are learned the hard way, man. Like,
Absolutely.
where it's
You-
like I always tell people, there's bucks on the wall because of bucks that I messed up on. Like, but once I mess up on one, it's like okay, I won't let that happen again. I'll learn from that, and that was just being too mobile, man. I could it was something I was doing, and I felt like I had to make these really big moves early on. Hunt a spot, and well, tomorrow I'll be 800 yards away. Man, when you're hunting down a particular buck or particular area at certain times of the year, you'll see something. Here's the part of being mobile. You see something, then you need to move 8 yards for the next sit. Then you kill
right.
them. That's being mobile, in my
Right.
opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It's like keep it simple. Don't be
Hmm.
worried about anybody else out there except for yourself. Let's talk a little bit about your Kansas trip, man.
Okay.
So, oh, so you pulled into Kansas. What was the very first decision that you made that ended up shaping your entire trip for the better or for the worse?
Yeah, so the very first decision I made is the same decision that happens on every out of state trip and most of every kind of hunting even here in Michigan now is the whole first day was used for scouting. Going out there to Kansas, I had a pretty big plan. Had labeled kind of stacked these public lands in order of how I wanted to scout them, how to be most efficient scouting those. And then 48 hours before leaving for Kansas, I land permission on a piece of private piece. And so it kind of pivoted, but even though we still had private piece, it was still, listen, the game plan's the same. Doesn't matter what the sign says at the road. We're going to put our boots on day one and we're going to walk this entire piece and figure it out. And well, I'll be honest, the piece I was hunting in Kansas had a lot more topography than I had ever imagined. I hunted topography like that, but I've never hunted topography that had the amount of cedars on these ridges and ravines like this one did. And that one threw me for a little bit of a loop because I very quickly noticed that I was like, dude, it's gonna be tough to hunt. Like, it's gonna be tough to pick trees out and whatnot. Spent that whole first day breaking down the property, and it was so big, and the way it played out with the neighboring pieces, that this particular piece was 232 acres, and I felt like no matter what we did, when I talk about weeds, I had a cameraman with me on this trip. Is that, say if we walked from west to east at these deer, if whatever we bumped in there, they were just kind of circling there. Like, I didn't really feel like we'd have a big effect of bumping a lot of deer. But Justin, we scouted that whole first day, and it was apparent there's good buck sign around there. We weren't really jumping any deer in there, but when we arrived at Kansas that week, for the second trip this year, I was dealing with a ton of easterly winds. So scouting and knowing what that forecast was going to look like over the next week, a lot of my scouting was kind of dependent on going, okay, we're going to have these kind of wind directions. It's November, 15th was the day we were scouting. So
Yeah,
it's the
because
middle
I
of
think we went down to, like, they're around the same day. Maybe we're,
Mhm.
like, a day apart or something like that. I
Yeah,
know
I
I'd
think
talked to
so.
you.
And so, the scouting was kind of just knowing what kind of wind we were going to have, how could a buck use this ground, and I found myself in this area, and I it seems to happen a lot when I dive into a brand new place. It's usually if I end up somewhere back 2 or 3 times, that's kind of usually the area that I'm like, "Okay, like, I've circled back here 2 or 3 times. Let's really pick this apart." And when we came into this one area, and it was basically at where a big cedar ravine kinda dumped out to, and the ridge kinda came to an end. There's a big pond right there, and I was just attracted to it. There's multiple things coming together, but it all kinda pinched down there. And so now the question was how are we gonna hunt this? Like, and I'm not used to hunting, in areas that I can shoot, say, 40 yards or more. Like, the swamps here in Michigan, like, it is pretty much top pin club only, and outside of that, like, you probably won't even see the animal. You might hear it sloshing through the water, but you won't even see it. So out there, I was like, man, I can see a long ways, and so I don't, man, I can't tell you how many times I walked back and forth between these three trees. Kept going,
Just not
maybe
sure,
this.
like, which one to pick out.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I want them to be so close. I don't wanna have
right.
to shoot 30 yards. I don't like that. I don't wanna have to shoot 40 yards. I want this thing close, and
Mhm.
we're going back and forth, and so we picked this tree, and it's this old hedge apple tree, and it's old. It's huge. And surrounded by cedars. And I'm not used to being able to trim trees and all that shit. And all I have is a handsaw, and I don't have a pole saw or nothing. And I was like, oh, I realized real quick. I was like, man, I probably should have brought a pole saw knowing I got permission, 48 hours before leaving. But I had a handsaw. So we climb up in this tree, Justin, and it's got the biggest squirrel nest in the crotch of it. And it's about 3.5 foot off the ground, and we called the tree the eagle's nest because it looks like, when you're driving down the interstate and you're like, dude, look at the bald eagle's nest out there on the side of the highway. They're giant. That's what this looked like, but it's only 3 foot off the ground. And, the squirrel he somehow had just, piled all this shit up there in the crotch of it, where essentially that's where I hunted from. And no, no tree stand, no saddle platform, no saddle, no ropes, no nothing. I just stood on it and leaned back because it was like a big triple trunk, had four of them, and they kind of all leaned out, and it was actually pretty comfortable. Like,
Yeah.
you just would
I
stand there.
remember I'm visualizing it because I remember, like, seeing some of the pictures and stuff in there, and I was
Yeah,
wondering, I'm like, "Dude, it looked super thick in there." I was like, "Man, talk about a tight quarter spot." Like, I mean,
yeah.
obviously you had a good trail picked out or something there, so
Yeah, and it was basically like, and there was a lot of CRP ground in the cedars, and we were just kind of walking those trails and walking those trail. I'd walk a trail on Onyx and map it and stop it and go walk the next one. And where could I put the most junction of trails closest to this tree? And so we got, I basically had 2 shots there, and you could shoot a pretty good distance, probably 40 yards to each. And so there's a right decision that happened right then, and there was also a wrong one. So the way we kind of came into the back door of this tree, we kind of slipped into we had to cross this barbed wire fence, and we kind of slipped right into the back door of this tree, and then we kind of face out, to the north. And you know, I told my cameraman, because I knew that we'd be in there the next morning, and I said, let's get because he's going to be up, like, he'll probably be 8-9 foot up in the tree, just the way the tree played out. And I'm right-handed, but he was to my left, just because the tree, that's the only way we can make it work. And so I said, go get your saddle platform, let's get it hung. You can just leave your saddle in here. We'll just leave all that shit in here overnight. We'll slip back in here the next morning. Just as we're getting ready to leave, he says, DJ, he says, do you want to trim a shooting lane out that, over your left shoulder there, the kind of our entry and exit that we kind of crawl through these cedars? I said, no. I said, we shoot one, we'll kill him right out here in front of me, or right out here in front of you, which would be like, if I'm facing north, it'd be to my northwest. And well, dude, I tell you what, that squirrel didn't like that we were in there, because the next morning when we slipped in there, he had chewed the cameraman's the belt right through his belt on his saddle. He
No way.
chewed through that. We had a set of rattling antlers. We left right in there for the, knowing we were going to be in there the next morning. Chewed on the antlers, chewed the Titan strap, holding the antlers together. The squirrel's pissed, dude. Not happy that we were in there. Yeah.
My goodness.
Well, the decision to hunt there, or our decision to scout and where we picked, morning one, I mean, dude, it was just like what you hoped for. The sun was coming up, and where we were at, there's these big windmills. I remember the shadows just kind of turning, and down in this big cedar ravine. I was like, man, my cameraman and I both heard like this big grunt at the same time, and I grabbed my bow, and we're just kind of waiting, and all of a sudden you can hear him grunt again, and we're like, oh shit, he's down in that cedar ravine. And I was like, can you see him? He's like, no, I can't see him. Then all of a sudden he's like, oh, I just caught a flash of a deer. These two does come flying up out of the cedar ravine up into this top of the CRP grass, and they're kind of head on towards us. And so you're like, there's a buck behind him somewhere. And all of a sudden he's kind of filming. The 2 does break off. One goes to the left, one goes to the right. The one that goes to the right's a fawn, to the left's an adult doe. He's filming the adult doe, and he should be able to see the buck before I could, but he was filming the doe, and all I can do, Justin, I can just see his tines coming up this cedar ravine, and I was like, oh shit! I was like, here we go, morning one, and he's just a typical 10, and he comes flying up there, dude, and you can see his shadow in the video is so awesome, because he gets behind. There's one giant cedar in front of us, and he's just grunting his ass off. And as he's coming from behind that cedar on film, you can see his shadow before you can ever see him. So you're seeing, like, you can see all his tines and his body. And that joker comes, and I knew once those 2 does split, I was like, he's gonna split towards that adult doe, and I was like, we're in the chips. We're absolutely in the chips. She's standing out there a little bit of a distance, so she's at like 35. And for some reason, he takes that doe and takes the tree where we are in and just splits them and comes running right in to 16 yards. And there's a window that's perfect for the cameraman, but I can't even see the buck because of a cedar tree. And he is like doing one of those crackling grunts, and he's right there. And I'm just at full draw waiting for him to hit that opening. And he takes a couple steps, and I was like, you ready? And he says, yeah, I'm ready. And dude, and this sucks. Because he was the 3rd buck I shot this year. And out of all 3, he's the easiest shot, 16 yards broadside. And looking back, I hit this deer a little bit low and a little bit back. And I initially thought just low lung, maybe back towards the liver, but just low lung. But you remember, I'm only 3.5 feet off the ground. So, like,
Yeah.
my angle shouldn't be an issue. Blows right through the deer. He takes off. He probably runs 15, 20, maybe 25 yards tops. He's still on, he's still all on camera. And I'm like, dude, he's gonna tip over. And his mouth is wide open, he's panting, and he did something I've never seen a whitetail do is the side I shot him on his left side, he was taking his front hoof and he kept stomping it, like picking it up and stomping it down, picking it up. And I was like, man, what is he doing? You could see the blood coming out of him, and he's just, mouth open and his head's kind of swaying. He kind of looks like he's in, like in trouble, like he got yelled at and he's embarrassed now. And I'm like, dude, come on, tip over, tip over. And he's just standing there and minutes are going by. And I was like, oh man, something's not
You
right
couldn't get
here.
another shot,
I
I
couldn't
guess?
get another
Yeah.
shot, and even for me to be able to see him, I had to step out on one of the limbs just to look at him. Looking back, I wish I would have just jumped down that 3.5 foot and seen if I could of because he was kind of towards where our access was to come in there. Where it's like looking back, it's like, man, I wonder if I could have just jumped down and maybe got another shot off just because of how dazed he was. Well, long story short, we give that deer, 12 hours, bring a dog in and got a dog on the track, jumped that deer at 12 hours. He is still alive. And that dog tracker gave me a fair warning that night. We will try to get in the morning, but if I'm just telling you right now, if you've never been out, this is what the tracker said to me. If you've never been on one hell of a track job in Kansas, that deer, that shit, and they were like that deer, because they seen the video and they were pretty confident that deer was going to die, but they weren't confident in was arguably how far would the
Is he
coyotes
gonna
run that
go?
deer that night.
Right.
And that's what we ran into is the next day we never turned up a single thing of that buck ever again. And, I even went out there a couple weeks after that just out of curiosity to look for him again, or I threw
Mhm.
some more hunts out there. But, so that was the plus side. Our scouting was right. We got ourselves into situation, 16-yard shot, morning one, beautiful. I mean, sunrise, everything was exactly like you wanted. Perfect. Now, there was a mistake though, because I'll fast forward a little bit to that was a Saturday. Tuesday we get back to hunting. Yeah, because I shot him on Sunday and then tracked all day Monday. Tuesday we get back to hunting and right back into that same tree. We said, man, we got to try it. Let's get right back into the eagle's nest. And we had this, I don't know, he's mid 40s, maybe touch 50, clean nine, typical, come right into 9 yards, but he came into that window that my cameraman says, hey DJ, do you think we should trim the back door here,
Yeah.
our access? And I said, no, we won't, we don't need that. We'll kill him out in front of us. We had him at 9 yards. I was at full draw, stopped him twice, and I just couldn't find a window. And maybe I was a little bit gun shy from, shooting one a couple days, before that. And maybe I could have forced the shot, but it, so I made a good decision that day, but I also made a bad one where if I would have trimmed that, our access trail that we came in there, if I would have just about 2 or 3 cedar branches, if I would have got rid of, I had him at 9 yards, and that particular buck come through there that night 3 different times inside 15 yards, and that cedar tree cost me that deer.
Man. Oh, man. I'll tell you, that's one thing that I always try to do is just clear out as many shooting lanes as I possibly can, and, like,
Mhm.
obviously, we can't do that on public, but, man, being on private, it's, like, it's one thing I'm super weird about, like,
Mhm.
I try to get that out of the way as soon as possible because it's, like, that can be the thing that costs you. That's the biggest downside to mobile hunting,
Yeah.
honestly, is, like,
Yeah.
we find ourselves in all these different heights and and we're always finding cover, but it's like that fine line between too much cover and not enough. And it's like
Mhm.
when you're hunting in those cedars, man, and like especially during the rut, you just never freaking know. And no matter how many times you've been doing this. It's like it's always that one lane that you don't seem to trim out or something that something bad happens. But that's hunting, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like it sounds like such a blast. And I remember, I think I want to say you shot your buck. We both went through heartache that same
Mhm.
Saturday. I
Mhm.
spent all day Sunday looking for my buck. I had the easiest shot I've had in many years, and somehow just clipped the back of this deer's shoulder. And it's one I'll never forget. But at the same time, like it's just bow hunting, man. Like
Yeah.
it's bow hunting during the rut. These deer are so much tougher during the rut than they are any other time. Like I thoroughly believe, like had it been a earlier October or late season, you probably would have covered that deer no problem. But and I went through that with my first Iowa buck. Like here
Mhm.
this year, I hit him
Yeah.
low, and I went through. I mean, we bumped him after 24 hours, man. Like, and I guarantee you that deer died. Like, I actually went back. I went to that job site earlier this week, and I walked through there just doing a little quick shed hunt, and I found right where he was, and I was like, "Son of a bitch!" I thought he went so far, but I quick drove, and I went a different direction. I'm like, I know that's exactly the route that he took, and it was such a short trip that he went. He just ran till he died.
Mhm.
And I learned so much from that experience, and you learn so much from the trackers too. Like,
Mhm.
I picked up a ton of knowledge this year from that tracking guy. So that was
Yeah.
a first experience for me. I've never used a tracking dog.
Mhm.
I think we all hate to say like, hey, we got to get the tracking dog out, but yeah, I mean, we owe it to the animal too. At the same time, it's like here we are, you know, we spent all this time, energy, money, everything into doing this, and it's like I just want to find the deer, and on those marginal shots, it's like they're tough, man.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It really gives you even that much more respect for them.
Yeah. And dude, those tracking dogs are phenomenal. I mean, unreal. And I mean, I'm not even afraid to admit I used one in the 24 season here in Michigan, and I shot this Michigan buck, and it was right there, right where that the liver and lungs meet. And when I stopped that deer, he was on a mission that night, and I kind of had to, I kind of you know whistled at him twice basically, and by the second time I was kind of more aggressive, and it kind of made him turn into me a little bit because he's like, "What the hell is that?" And I knew I was gonna have to hold back off that shoulder just a little bit, so it's probably gonna be lung entry, liver exit, and it's exactly the arrow hit exactly where I was aiming and bled like crazy. But I knew right away. I sent it to my buddy that's a tracker, and he was like, "Yep, let's give him overnight." But it's just wild because those a hit like that where the up and downs are right, just a tad bit back, with the angle where it's like, dude, that's a dead deer every time. You just got to give them some time to expire. Those dogs are so damn good at recovering it, where it's like they can take care of something in 12 minutes, what would take us 4 hours.
Oh, I know. I
But
know.
I'm the same way. Whatever, like even out there in Kansas like that, I thought, let's give them 12 hours. Let's get a dog. I don't care what the price is. Let's get this animal recovered. And Justin, I was shocked when we weren't long into that track, and all of a sudden that deer's standing there. You can see its eyes, and we're like, "Are you kidding me? Like 12
Yeah.
hours? Like how do they?"
Oh,
You know,
I know,
a
man. I
past
felt the
it's
same way. I
crazy.
literally walked 5 feet away from. I mean, the buck literally let the dog and the tracking guy, walk right past him,
Hmm.
and he just had this branch overlapping his body. I mean, I turned. I just had this feeling. It's like this weird feeling. I like just backtracked, and it looked like a boulder sitting there. I mean, I'm not, I'm new to Iowa.
Hmm.
The first big mature deer I see, and I'm like, dude, the deer are just giant. Kansas
Hmm.
and Iowa are the same, structure deer. And I was like, is that a boulder? And then I saw his tines, and I was like, oh my God, he's alive. Before I could even get an arrow knocked, it just broke my heart because I'm like, you're a dumbass. Like, why weren't you ready for that? And I figured, I'm like, it's 24 hours. We're doing a body search. We're not, this deer's not alive, but like anymore on the next experience, man, like I'm not entering that track without an arrow knocked. Like I will
Hmm.
go extremely slow and be glassing all the way through. And it's like, you just never know, man. Like you got to give them that benefit of the doubt that they are still alive. Cause I truly believe a lot of times, like when they're in that rough a shape, you have a really good opportunity to put another arrow in them and really finish them off, you know?
Yeah. But
So
see, that right there though is like, as much as you may feel like, man, I made a mistake, but like listening to like what you're saying right there, it's like you're learning something from that. Like you're saying,
yeah,
next time I will have an arrow knocked where it's like, okay, as much as that felt like a mistake, like it's not I don't it's not a mistake in my eyes because you're learning from it. And
right.
like where you're like, this will not happen again. Where even like the shooting that buck in Kansas this year, and like I said, that was the 3rd buck this year, and it was the easiest shot out of all 3, but so it makes me have to come back home and think about what do we do here? What's the issue? And I know what the issue is. I there was a point, and it was just I'm at full draw. I stopped the animal, and I guarantee you, I the thing I will struggle with at times is I need to slow the moment down more
Yes.
often. I
Oh my
need to
God.
be
Yeah. You're so
me
right.
need to be more present in those moments of the shot, and I'm not talking about just being more present, like taking everything on in the woods. I'm talking about, like, being in that shot, remembering where that arrow hit, actually remembering aiming.
And slowing down with your pin. I mean,
Mhm.
I think the close shots, like, yeah, they're supposed to be. It's in our head that like, dude, this deer's so dead. It's so dead. Like, I'm like, I mean, oh God, like I've never had a shot that close. But I think the closer they are, the more you really have to just bury your pin and just get into like follow through, follow through, follow through.
Mhm.
Like I got to see it on my Kansas, buck this year. Like I had my camera rolling and I saw myself like come to full draw and just, I'm like, dude, you like, and it's so hard in the moment. Your adrenaline is through the
Mhm.
roof, you're spiked and you're like, man, if I would have just taken an extra half a second to just make sure like, okay, here's the body, here's this, the deer's not moving. Why didn't I take that extra second? It's literally the difference in killing that thing or not. And I also, another big takeaway I had from that experience was in those tight quarter shots, I don't want to use a mechanical head. I want
Mhm.
to use a fixed head. So that's something that I added into my quiver. Now I had a leftover iron will. I honestly didn't care that much for those heads. And like, I'm
Mhm.
not bashing iron will. I think they're a phenomenal broadhead, but like, I just didn't care for the blood trails. I didn't care for that. But you know what? I can almost guarantee if I would have been shooting one of those heads, I would have gotten more penetration and maybe killed that animal. So
Yeah. Yeah.
just something that, every failure that any of you guys listening out there, like the biggest takeaway, no matter how much experience you have, is like just learning from your failures and moving forward. And
Mhm.
like, I love what Ryan said, on our last podcast. I don't know if you got to listen to it or not, but he, through his work, they tell him to like fail fast
Mhm.
and move forward.
Yep.
And I was like, man, like that's one of the best pieces of advice I think every mobile hunter, every hunter should be taking,
Yeah,
from their
for sure.
experience in the woods.
Yeah.
You know,
And it's like, and I don't want like that's not how I wanted that Kansas shot to play out like that. But that what it does is it gives me something to work on now. So I come back home and I know because I've seen this happen to myself and I got away from it. It happened to me back in 2020 where I started noticing that it was good enough, right? Like you talked about how like the closer ones are sometimes the harder ones. Where that shot, like looking back, I'm like DJ, what like play the whole thing back and what do you feel? What do you feel went wrong? And I was like the only thing I keep thinking about during that shot because I felt like it broke good, everything felt good, other than my mindset being it's good enough right there, good enough.
yeah,
Where
right.
it's not picking a hair and slowing the process down. But now it gives me something to do. Now I come home, it's the dead of winter. I can get the hinge release back out, and we can start slowing this process down again. Because here's like we talked about a little bit earlier, that buck got away from me but what he taught me a lesson with the next one won't get away because I'm like, that shit will I don't want it to happen again.
Right,
So I
right.
I kinda like to have something to work on in the off season also. I don't like why I have to have a reason to work on it, but I have one now and I'm here to work on it.
Yeah. Man, this has gotta be one of the, fastest episodes I feel like I've had in a while, man. This has been great. I got one more, question I wanted to ask you, and it's, For someone listening right now that feels stuck, maybe burned out, maybe questioning if they're cut out for mobile hunting, what would you tell them from your lowest point in the woods? Like, like we're kind of talking about our downtimes like this season. Like what's something that, I think that we all kind of get to that every once in a while, like those tough seasons that we have. And, what's a good piece of advice you've got?
Yeah. And I think of times when, I felt like I was struggling in the woods, and I I I look back at those times, Justin, I think, why, what was going wrong, and I would sit back and I question why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I love it. But you want to know when I felt like times when I'd be struggling, it's when I was trying to be like somebody else, and I wasn't being myself, and I wasn't hunting for the reasons why I want to hunt and why I love hunting. So I would think, so if someone's struggling out there, and maybe coming off a bad season, and their situation may be totally different. They may not they may not be trying to be like somebody else, but that was what I was recognizing, that we see what everyone else is doing, and we listen to podcasts, and we watch YouTube, and we see social media, and we see guys that consistently are killing every year. Just remember, those guys have created their own method of hunting, and they know why they love hunting for themselves. And most of the time, those guys don't give a shit what anyone else thinks about them. And that's
Mhm.
that's the one thing. 2019 that really changed for me. Um, we won't get into too long of a story, but I'll just say this: my daughter and I were in a terrible, terrible car accident. I never thought I'd probably be able to hunt again. But when I did, I quickly realized that I need to hunt only for myself and my own personal reasons. Didn't give a shit what anyone else thought of it. And I needed to create my own style of hunting. I can take bits and pieces of other guys that are consistently killing, but I need to create my own method of hunting and not do it for anyone else.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. I think you're really spot on with that. And I think that's part of why I had so much fun this year is because I kind of like I had a couple seasons that were really hard for me in Kentucky. Just stuff happens. I think
Mhm,
we all go through tough seasons for a reason. And
mhm,
it's like you can either go through them or grow through them. And, this year specifically, man, I just really wanted to just have fun. It's always been a dream to hunt Iowa. And I just looked at this season as just like, you know what, man, like I want to go out there and just enjoy every
mhm.
hunt that I go on. And I thoroughly did. And I had the best season of my life, and I hunted the least amount I did, which is kind of heartbreaking, but I also had the best season of my life at the
Yeah.
same time. So it's, I think you couldn't have responded better to that, man. And it's like we all need to really take a step back and look at things, for what they are. Like we're not promised anything. And,
Mhm.
you got to look at your time in the outdoors as like, we all love this. Obviously, if you're listening to this podcast and you're at this point, it's like you're ate up with it. You love it. Like, don't do it for any other reasons than that.
Mhm.
And I think it's a great way to segue into, our little rapid fire if you want, if there's anything else you got to touch on.
No, man, I think that's a great way, and it's, I get it. Like I said, you can get stuck in seeing what other people are doing, but I really think when a guy can turn that page and really do this for himself and for his own reasons, never, and I like, you shouldn't feel any pressure out there. Like,
No.
if you're feeling pressure, you might really want to think about why you're doing it, but only thing I would ever say on top of that, when you're out there, man, I think hunting with confidence is so important too. And so, even if you feel like your season's down or you came off a down season, let's just say you had a bad 2025 season, dude, that's over with. Like, full confidence ahead in 2026. Like, every time you go out there to scout, you're going to find what you're looking for. Every time you're going to hunt, you're going to kill the animal you're after. I think hunt with confidence and hunt for yourself, man.
Yeah.
That's the way I talk about it.
No, I love it, dude. What's been your favorite broadhead over the years and what are you using now?
Yeah, so right now I'm using the G5 Mega Meat, and that's been a pretty, I've loved that broadhead. I am as colorblind as they come, so something
Oh,
that makes them bleed is something that I need a lot.
Yeah.
So,
They
before
seem to
that,
do
man,
that, I'll tell you what, man.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
and
So
they put them
I've
down
been
quick
shooting.
too if you hit them right. I mean,
Yes.
they don't last
Yep.
very long.
Yeah, I've been shooting those over the last couple of years, and I've been very, very happy with those. And before that, I shot Slick Trick Magnum 100s for a long time,
Okay.
and I shot a lot of animals with those. But I always needed a lot of help on the blood trail because I struggled so hard with those. But they would kill animals, there's no doubt. But for me right now, the G5 Mega Meats are they've been devastating. They're kind of nasty on animals. They
They
can
are,
be.
man. They are. I love them. I wish they made a little bit better retention for the
Hmm.
blades every once in a while, especially in thick stuff. I feel like
Hmm.
sometimes the blades pop, but yeah, if you got a good one, they seem to do the trick pretty well as long as you stay off the shoulder. What's like one of your favorite songs you're jamming to the woods or genre if you don't have a favorite?
And if I'm going to the woods, I'm a big
Full
Alice in Chains.
confidence. Alice in Chains? Okay.
I'm a big Alice in Chains fan. I for some reason the one that always gets stuck in my head, like if I'm like start the truck up, let's throw Spotify on would be Nutshell by Alice in Chains, man. I don't know. It's I like songs that, when you're by yourself, you're rolling cruise control and you can just look out the side window and it makes you think about just whatever in life. I like those.
No, that's awesome, man. I love that. What's the number one animal on your bucket list, man? Like if money was not the option and you could go anywhere in the world, what would be the animal and why?
Man, that's a tough one because there's some cool ones out there. But I'm not gonna lie, man. I love the look of November Midwest whitetails. I absolutely love those, but just for the sake of it, we'll take whitetails off the board. It would have to be the adventure would have to come along with it. The scenery, the way it played out, a a row a float trip with a raft for an Alaskan like Yukon moose, like something
Okay.
like that. Like, where it's I've seen the videos where they're taking the rafts in, you gotta get off the raft way through the water and the big moose, like the 70 inchers, like something like that
Giant.
probably.
Yeah. I agree with you, man. I think we recently I just started watching the new series of Alone on Netflix. And have you seen it?
I
Or
haven't.
no, well, you
I've
should
seen the
check it
show,
out.
but not the new
It's
one.
actually real I actually really like this season. It's like it's the new season out,
Mhm.
and, one of the guys is, hunting with a recurve and shoots this giant bull moose, dude. But even better, he missed one, like, a few days prior to that and then ends up getting on another one. It's an absolute stud, and it's just really cool, though, to, like, put yourself in his position. You're like totally alone. It's like, oh shit, like
Yeah.
now what? Now you got to deal with all this meat. You got grizzlies, you got wolves, and like the dude does a phenomenal job just taking care of the meat. Making all this makeshift stuff to like store the meat and like keep it away from bears and stuff. So just a little, throwing it out there. It's something cool to check out and
Yeah, I'll have to check it out, but
cool
yeah,
little
I
series.
but it's like a scenery thing for me. It's gotta
Yeah,
look the part too. The same as
something
like,
different.
like, we there's an elk season in Michigan and it's a once in a lifetime tag. And don't get me wrong, I put in for it every year and I'll probably never draw it. But if I did, I would definitely go on the hunt. But like I don't think of elk hunting what it looks like in Michigan. I think of elk hunting in the out out west, right? In the
Right,
mountains, and
right.
you hear them screaming. I don't think of elk hunting in Michigan where it's like, don't get me wrong, I'd take the tag, but if I go elk hunting for scenery wise, I'd want it to look like what it would out west. So I just think that look of the Yukon like that and those float in trips would be pretty sick.
Highly recommend doing an elk hunt, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of life changing for me. It's another reason why we moved out here to Iowa. So hopefully I can, start doing some more elk hunts. Yeah, a little bit more feasible, not quite as far of a drive, but
Yeah, for sure.
DJ, it has been an absolute pleasure, man. Really, really enjoyed this one with you here. Guys, make sure you're following along on the Method podcast and DJ, drop your social, however any of our guys can keep up and follow along with you if they're not.
Yeah, well, first off, thanks for having me on, Justin. I greatly appreciate the opportunity, man. And I don't do much over on Facebook, but on Instagram, you can find me on my personal page. Is just D Riley Jr. So DRILEYJR, and just a mix between kind of bow hunting, whitetails, and family stuff, pretty much.
Absolutely, man. Well, buddy, it's been a pleasure having you on again. Look forward to catching up with you and following along on the off season and looking forward to what you do next year.
All right, buddy. Appreciate it. Talk to you
Yes,
soon.
sir. All right.